College planning simpler for families. Bobby, how are you doing today?
I'm just great. Just really excited. I mean, last time we met, really had some excitement about, like really some things that are close to my heart here that we want to talk about. So I'm just ready to talk about this. This is very cool.
Yeah, so the thing that we wanted to talk about today is we feel like there's one critical college planning step that a lot of families miss.
Mhm.
And I think, Bobby, in fairness, it happens because all of our counselors, all of the parents around us, everybody talks about checking the boxes on
Mhm.
how to get into college, right? Everybody jumps into all the tactical stuff. It's all about, what colleges do we need to visit? What
Mhm.
tests do we need to take? What are the dates? What essays do I need to write? Right? It's all the tactical stuff.
Sure. And that stuff is really important, right? But
Mhm.
it's not the first step, right? That's the
Right.
thing.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and I want to, really talk about it. It's really not anybody's fault that we do this. It's, to me, as a parent that put
Mhm.
two kids through college, those tactical things are things that you can grab and get done and make happen, right? It
Sure.
provides some control as a
Mhm.
parent to, okay, we're getting our kid to this point. But what we fail to do first is looking at that whole child and figuring out why they want to put all this effort into this in the first place, number one,
Mhm.
and then what do they want? And there's so many things that attach to this.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think it's just so easy to for both parents and students to be like, oh, my friends are going here, or my family has always gone here, or my, I want to be in this place, or whatever, right? Or this school is famous, or whatever it is, and just like forget to actually figure out where will I be happy and competitive and do well in school, right? And graduate in 4 years and all that, right? And will it have the major that I want to do, right? And so we've talked a lot about, what's a good career, what's a good major, but it's really, yeah, as you said, looking at the whole student and the student and not just starting down the, like doing all the little check boxes.
The get it done trail,
Yeah.
the let's just knock it off the list because so much happens and things kind of fall into place if you take that step back
Mm-hmm.
and you really have these hard conversations. And I'll tell you, they're hard just in that there's not for the student, for them to be thinking about why do I want to do this? What's the end goal? What
Mm-hmm.
would I like to get out of this as far as a career? And, where am I heading? And it's hard because they're the only ones that can say, I got it right. They're
Mm-hmm.
the only ones, right, that can really dig deep and think about it. And because there's not a test that's telling them they did the right thing,
Mm-hmm.
a score that at the end, there's not, yes, you get to be admitted in this school. It's there, you got to really think about this. And it's interesting because I've had a lot of parents say, Kristen, really, can my 17 or 18-year-old figure out what they want as far as a career path, what they want at the
Mm-hmm.
end of this? And, my answer to that, Bobby, is we've all got to start somewhere.
Yeah.
And why not start now? Because we've got a lot riding on this decision, right? We've got a lot of money going out the door. We've got 4, 5, 6 years of our life. And by the way, that whole 1 to 2 years leading up to it that we're focusing. I mean, we're putting a lot of effort into this.
Absolutely. I mean, and the answer doesn't have to be right. You don't have to have found the exact thing. You have to have started thinking about what will make you happy and what you would enjoy doing and what you're interested in. Right. And so, like, one of the things is, like, I think, I don't know, the way I was, grew up or whatever, a lot of us was like, okay, you want to get into the best school that you can get into with your GPA and your grades and activities or whatever. Right. But it's not the best as in the number on US News rankings or whatever. It's the best school for you, right?
Mhm.
And so, like I say a lot in tutoring, like the goal isn't to like get your SAT and ACT score up so that you can get into a college that like your GPA doesn't get you into, right? Then you're going to be unhappy. You're going to be at a school where everybody had higher GPAs than you in high school. You're not going to be competitive. It's going to be too hard, right? That may not be a good choice. The point of tutoring is to get your SAT score or ACT score to match your GPA so that it's not detracting from your getting into the school that you're competitive at. If then you get in there, and then you're going to be happy and competitive if it's the right school for you, right? And so that's what it is about. It's like, what would that school be? What kinds of schools would be the right schools for you? And that's the thing to focus on, and not just we should go to the US News list of rankings and take the top schools that we could get into, right, with our GPA and SAT score. That's not going to work very well. You're going to get into a school that for a million reasons you may not be happy at.
Right. And so it goes back to, again, taking that step back, looking a little bit more globally, or really at that whole student, and figure out what it is that's going to light their fire.
So how do you actually do that? So I know that one way is like investigating your career preferences, your strengths, the thing that you help students with. I know that that's really important, right? And we've talked about that a lot of times. What other things can students do to figure out like what they are as a whole person and where they would be happy?
There's I think what's really important, number one, is to truly understand who you are and how you're built. And as you know, we've talked about this. The Clifton Strengths Assessment is one of those things that I think will help at least start that journey of helping people understand the activities that they do that get them excited and make them happy. And that's just one step. The other one is really sitting down and critically thinking about what type of career I truly would be happy with. And a lot of times, Bobby, it's about figuring out the things that you don't like.
Right.
That's a good step, because a lot of people can always be like, oh, I don't want to work with old people, or I don't want to work with kids. Those are all telling, little pieces to this puzzle. I love working in science, or I'm really good at working with numbers. Great. There's lots of jobs. It just doesn't mean you have to be an accountant or an engineer or a financial right? There's so many options out there. So as you keep putting those little pieces of the puzzle together, I think it starts to formulate.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And I see Angela commented, knowing who you are is the number one thing. Absolutely. That is 100% the case. And so that's part of it is, okay, you say, okay, these careers and things like that would be things like these activities make me happy. And so that helps you a whole lot in starting the process. And then there are infinite other factors too that can affect things. And I think what happens is a lot of students just don't know what things actually would matter to them until they start actually visualizing themselves at a particular school. And so that's why, of course, if you're out traveling at all, just stop by any college, even if it's not one you're interested in. Just stop by and walk around to college just for a second, and start thinking about that. And then students will realize weird things that they didn't know they realized, that they care about what the campus feels like and looks like. And do they want it to be in the middle of the city? They want it to not be in the middle of the city, because when you combine together the things you're passionate about, right, that can help you with careers and majors, and you can make sure you go to a college that has that. But also what kind of student life and activities and things like that. Do you want a school where students are active in lots of different organizations? Or do you want a school where everybody's in their room studying all the time, right? MIT, nobody ever sees each other because they're all studying all the time. Now, that doesn't sound very appealing to me, but I know I have some students that's very appealing to, so that's a thing to look into, right? And until you know that about yourself, it would never occur to you to think about it. And as parents, what you think your kid would like is not the same thing as what you might like.
You're right. Because I'll tell you this, I tell my clients this all the time, Bobby. High school is about fitting in. That's, you're trying to be like other kids so that they'll like you, and you get to do all fun things. To me, college is all about now standing out and being who you are and finding your people. And, but to go in to college with a thought around that, about
Mhm.
who you truly are and the types of people you really want to be around, you have to do a little bit of soul searching. And, and it's like I said, it's the hard part for kids to do and hard things sometimes for the parents to hear because they've been programmed to fit in for 4 years. Now they have thoughts floating around in their head. And sometimes to say them to parents isn't very comfortable because it may be very different from what they've heard from them over the last few years, right?
Absolutely. And so, I think part of what we're saying is now putting a little bit of action into the figuring out of this process, right? So, like, I talked to a student yesterday who I asked what she was interested in, maybe majoring in her careers or whatever. And she said, well, she's interested in being a doctor, maybe an oncologist, or maybe like a, different sort of doctor, or maybe even a physical therapist. Right. And I said, okay, this is really great because you have some interests, right? Things that you're interested in. And I said, now what you just said are some careers that are extremely different from each other, right? There are very different careers in there, and physical therapist is a huge, right, different thing in what you do in your daily activity and what you do with your hands and things than an oncologist, right? And then I said, now if you're interested in oncology, maybe you need to look at the difference between oncology and radiology, right? And you need to look at these things. But then I said, you need to go find a doctor and go ask if you can spend a week in their office, like shadowing or whatever, right? Or to do a summer, whatever, because that's how you're going to find out. And that's now, but the point is, they at least had that talk, which is like, what are your interests, right? Now, okay, start translating that into actions, go investigate things, talk to people, see what it's actually going to be like. And the fact that this student is going into her junior year, like, of high school, she's got the time, but she needs to do it right now. Like, go start figuring out, okay, what do you want to do? Because all of that means start out with a pre-med major plan, but think about more of this and think about what college would be a good place, because every college has got pre-med, right? But
right. And really on that same thought, Bobby, you jumped way in, taking
right.
a week out of life. But I would say an even simpler kind of step would be curious, talk to people about their careers, right? And at least ask some of those questions. And, when I'm prepping my students to go out and do these expert interviews, one of the things that we talk about is then, these people might end up being mentors for you. They might help you get the next job, so it's all about walking in, having some thoughts on what you want to find out about that profession. And don't ask the easy stuff, right? Don't ask what should I major in? And, that you can find out online. What you need to ask is, how often are you home for Christmas? If you're in the medical profession, it's like, tell me what that looks like. For pilots, you're gone 4 days in a row.
Yeah. How does that feel?
Family life, those things that will really matter to you, not as seen on TV, but the real life. Another question I have them ask is, how would have you done it differently now that you've been through all this? Right. So, but I love that that's a huge step, Bobby, is putting the time in. And I go back to, we're doing 2 years of prep. We're doing 4 to 6 to 8 to 10 years of school.
Right.
And normally it's not 4, by the way. For a lot of students, it's 5 and 6.
Yeah.
You're going to put that much effort into it. Why not take some of the time now to start exploring and really, figure out what you want to do for the rest of your life?
Absolutely. And so that is like what we talked about last week. Like, start out by saying, tell me more about your interests, and start out by saying, let's figure out these things before we dive into the every week doing something on college planning, right? Starting to check off the checklist boxes, right? And I think you're going to find you have a much more engaged student, in the process, if they actually have some interest they know that this is about what they want to do, instead of mom and dad saying, okay, you must do this week. You must make a list of colleges. How do you make a list of colleges? Excuse me, if you don't know what you're going to do, right?
Right.
And that's it.
Yeah. And, I think that where this gets a little bit hairy is sometimes families do have to do this concurrently, right? Because you got to check off some of the boxes. But if you're having these conversations regularly, it'll morph and, and you will get to the place that you need to be.
100%.
Okay. I think we're good.
Yeah,
All right.
excellent. I will talk to you next time. This is great.
Thanks, Bobby.
Mhm.